Hey everyone, welcome to a very special episode where I'm going to recap the science news of 2018. You can thank my lovely wife for this idea, as she recommended it, and I thought that it would be really fun. So here we go. 2018 was a pretty big year for the biological sciences. A lot of really wild stuff happened. There was a number of incredible discoveries, there was some amazing medical advances, and there was also some ominous signs of the growing problem that is climate change. Alright, so let's start with news from the medical community, where all sorts of fun stuff was happening. One of the earlier news segments I reported was a study that found that muscle cells have an epigenetic memory, which means that if you build muscle and then lose it, and then build it up again, you'll be able to build it up faster. This was a really cool study that confirmed something that you would often hear in weightlifting circles, that it's easier to build muscle a second time. And on top of this, and better yet, one of the researchers from the study, Mr. Adam Sharples, actually left a comment on my YouTube video and said that it was a great summary of their work. So that was super cool, and I was really happy about that. It means that not only is this awesome science, being done and the work is getting out there, but it means that the scientists think that I'm doing a decent job summarizing their work, and that's awesome. That's exactly what I was trying to do. Now, in other medical news, 2018 saw the development of a blood test that could detect Alzheimer's proteins with 90% accuracy. It saw a potential cancer vaccine that could rapidly eliminate tumors. There was a potential treatment for Creutzfeldt-Jakob Disease, and a special kind of 3D printer was invented that can print human skin, for use as transplantable grafts for burns or massive scrapes and lacerations. There were also plague outbreaks in the Congo, and numerous pathogens were discovered to have developed drug resistance, like tuberculosis and typhoid. And there was a particular study that's as eerie as it is fascinating that found that there was some specific genetic activity that persisted after death. Some of my favorite news segments were about the WHO report that found that universal healthcare saves millions of people from financial ruin. And there was a Japanese experiment where genetically modified hens produced eggs full of interferon beta, which is an incredibly valuable protein used to treat ailments like multiple sclerosis. These eggs are worth millions of dollars each, and the mechanism of action could be repurposed to generate a wide variety of biological medicines. There were also numerous studies about psychedelics, and their potential as therapeutic medicines for treating social anxiety, PTSD, depression, suicidal ideation, and all kinds of other serious psychological problems. For example, one study found that ketamine reduced suicidal ideation. Another found that psychedelics promoted neuroplasticity, and another found that ayahuasca reduces stress and depression. This field in particular is a topic of extreme interest for me, because psychedelics are extremely powerful substances, and their use as medicine could be a revolution for Western psychological therapy. Alright, now let's look at the 2018 science news about life on Earth. Stuff like newfound fossils and discoveries of new species, or new behaviors, or changes to animal populations, or anything that has to do with the amazing wilderness of the living world around us. There was the study that identified an organism that undergoes heavy metal metabolism, and as it does so, it secretes purified gold. There was a study that discovered a new species of dogfish shark in the Gulf of Mexico. We discovered 3 new snailfish species deep in the Atacama Trench. We got a deeper understanding of great ape communication and chimpanzee culture. We saw that some species of ants use medics to perform triage and help save fellow ants on the battlefield after they've fought termites or other ant colonies. There was a protein discovered in birds' eyes that is believed to be able to detect magnetic fields. 2 of the world's worst crop pests interbred to create a hybrid, which is just going to be a nightmare for farmers. We learned more about photosynthetic sea slugs. We discovered a wasp with a stupidly huge stinger, and we discovered a massive aquatic amphibian that lives in the Florida swamps. We found that burying beetles preserve dead meat for their larvae. We uncovered a method of caste determination for Pheidolys worker ants, and researchers in the Pacific Northwest uncovered the full age and extent of the so-called humongous fungus. There was also the very sad story of the last northern white rhino male, who was euthanized after a brief fight with an infection in his leg. Scientists also discovered a massive termite colony that's thousands of years old, and it's so big that it can be seen from space. A species of Asian jumping spider was seen to feed milk to its young, in a case of convergent evolution with mammals. Some of my favorite news segments included a study about red-fronted lemurs who would rub millipede guts on their butt in a successful strategy to treat intestinal parasites. There was also a study about a particularly badass praying mantid that demonstrated remarkable perception and hunting skills. And there was a study that discovered the insidious chemical dependence that keeps symbiotic ants bound to their acacia tree host. Oh yeah, and how could I forget the study about the deep biosphere, which found that life on Earth extends far deeper into the crust than initially thought, forming an exotic biosphere defined by slow rhythms and cycles and very long lifespans. With respect to the evolution of life on Earth, scientists found that centralized nervous systems may have evolved multiple times across the tree of life. Dinosaurs and other ancient, long-gone life forms are a favorite topic of mine, and in that respect, 2018 did not disappoint. Researchers in China found 130 million-year-old dinosaur eggs, and a 100 million-year-old spider with a tail was found preserved in amber, as was a 99 million-year-old baby snake fossil. And there was a preserved beetle that gave clues as to the early evolution of the beetle-cycad symbiosis. There was a study that uncovered details about the early evolution of the mammalian jaw. There was another study that found that birds' eggs had evolved speckling and coloration in their dinosaur ancestors, and there was the discovery of an ichthyosaur fossil that showed evidence of blubber, which is yet another case of convergent evolution with mammals. A more recent news piece was about the discovery of ancient fossils belonging to the oldest large predatory theropod. I was also blown away by the study that dosed two-spotted California octopuses with ecstasy, and subsequently determined that the prosocial serotonergic system has been conserved across 500 million years of animal evolution. Near the end of the year, there was a thought-provoking study that suggested a supernova 2.6 million years ago may have contributed to the extinction of the megalodon. Now, climate change is becoming an increasingly worrisome problem across the world, and 2018 saw numerous articles and studies published that analyzed the effects of climate change and the impact that human activity is having on the planetary ecology. Some studies from earlier in the year found that fungicides and insecticides used in industrial agriculture were having terrible consequences for bee populations. Another study found that bird populations across France were undergoing catastrophic collapse, which mirrors a study from the year before about the catastrophic collapse of flying insect populations in Germany. And yet another study found that giraffe populations were also crashing, to the point where they're now listed as vulnerable. There was a study that found that wild horses had died off completely. Another study found that Cambodian leopards were hurtling towards extinction. And more studies found that humans are destabilizing animal populations across the world, and that the loss of biodiversity will have massive downstream ecological consequences in the form of extinction cascades. Even more viscerally, there was a study that found that climate change could possibly cause unsurvivable heat waves across northeastern China near the end of the century. And let's just say that death on an inconceivable scale is not hyperbole. 2018 also saw a lot of news about life outside the Earth. There was tantalizing clues and hints of life that were analyzed across the cosmos, from the planets in our own solar system to planets across the galaxy. We discovered that Mars has far more water than we thought, including a possible underground lake. And we discovered that Mars has methane cycles and a lot of organic molecules across its surface. We discovered water ice on the moon, and we discovered that lunar dust might be a more dangerous health hazard than we initially thought. And despite this, China is planning on colonizing the far side of the moon to grow vegetables and silkworms. We saw heavy organic molecules being spewed out of Enceladus, and we discovered that UV radiation hitting ice and methane could potentially generate the deoxyribose sugars used in DNA. and that has really big implications for panspermia and the spread of life throughout the cosmos. There was a study that found that the K2155 system has a super-Earth in its habitable zone, and another study that found that the HD 34445 system has 2 moon-laden gas giants in its habitable zone. There were multiple studies about the incredibly interesting TRAPPIST-1 star system, and the mystery of the Atacama alien mummy was resolved. It turned out it wasn't an alien mummy, it's just the stillborn body of a girl riddled with mutations who died a few decades ago. Alright, this has been a review of the science news of 2018, and even though there was a lot here, it's far from a comprehensive list. I didn't cover every single bit of science news, and even in this video, I didn't recap every single bit of science news that I did. Now before I end this video, I want to tell you what I personally thought were the 3 biggest news articles of 2018. Alright, first, the honorable mention. The honorable mention goes to all of the studies about climate change, and the massive impact that humans are exerting on our planet's ecology. There wasn't any one single study that really popped out to me this year, but the issue itself is incredibly important. It's existentially important, and so it really wouldn't feel right to have a list like this without including all the research on climate change and the anthropogenic extinction event. Now moving on to the number 3 slot, the third most important news article of 2018, I'm going to go with the study that found that ayahuasca reduces symptoms of stress and depression, and improves mindfulness and life satisfaction. This research is really important because I think it's symbolic of the greater cultural awakening towards psychedelics. We're starting to appreciate these powerful biological substances from a point of maturity and respect. And because of this, we're going to soon enjoy the psychological and spiritual benefits of psychedelics on a large scale. I think our modern societies, which are increasingly narcissistic, materialistic, and spiritually perverted, could benefit greatly from the therapeutic use of psychedelics as a means to find peace and contentment in a world that seems so fast-paced and impersonal. Psychedelics can help us reconnect to the natural world, despite the artificial worlds that we've built all around us to distract us from our own mortality. This is an area of research that, to me, holds incredible potential, not just for those suffering from PTSD and depression and chronic anxiety, but for our civilization as a whole. Okay, number 2. I think the second most important research of 2018 has to go to those Japanese scientists who developed those genetically modified hens. Their work is groundbreaking in so many ways, and the medical value is almost indescribable, both in terms of what they accomplished and in terms of the medical potential for producing other kinds of valuable medicines with the same mechanism. The researchers were able to modify hens to produce eggs that were full of interferon beta, which, until now, was really difficult and expensive to synthesize. The genetically modified hens are healthy and otherwise normal, and the eggs that they produce are worth millions of dollars each. The potential here is that now that this technique has been proven to work, we can fiddle with the genetics and potentially create hens that can pump out eggs packed with almost any kind of medicinal enzyme or metabolite. I can imagine a future where we have huge farms of genetically modified hens, all of them kept happy and comfortable and healthy as they pump out an egg a day, full of who knows what kind of valuable medicinal compound. With a drug production process like this, drugs that are rare and expensive today might not be rare and expensive at all in the near future. And that's great news for everyone, and I'm really excited about it. Alright, and now we come to number 1, the winner, the most important news piece of 2018. This year's winner, hands down, is the most shocking, the most unethical, most groundbreaking and controversial experiment arguably ever conducted outside the theater of war. The number 1 news piece of 2018 goes to the Chinese researcher Dr. He Jiankui for his unsanctioned and arguably illegal genetic modification of a human embryo, which was carried to term and resulted in the birth of 2 twin girls. This development was shocking news because it was unprecedented and so dangerous, It was on the cutting edge of this genetic modification technology, and a lot of people were outraged that Dr. Jin Kui was not taking proper safety precautions. It was unprecedented because no one had birthed genetically modified humans before. The global consensus was that we really shouldn't be doing this, because the gene editing technology hasn't been optimized for safety. And on top of this, there are huge ethical problems with editing the human germline. While Dr. Jin Kui made a single edit to a single gene that made the twin girls immune to HIV infection, his fellow scientists in China said that he opened Pandora's box and ushered in a new age of human genetic modification. If we're to take this news to its most extreme, we could realistically argue that Dr. Jin Kui has opened the door for humans to take our evolution into our own hands, to take full control of our genetic composition, and to shape ourselves into optimized organisms. This might sound great. I mean, what's wrong with being an optimized organism? Well, it's just that there's some extremely heavy ethical baggage here. Genetic modification of humans can cure genetic diseases, but mistakes can lead to gross malformations and death. Genetic discrimination is a serious problem that could destabilize the current social order. And if powerful nations or unethical private companies decided to take the leap and make genetically modified super soldiers, this could lead to a nightmarish reality that we've only glimpsed in our darkest, grimmest science fiction dystopia. Alright, well that has been my recap of science news for the year 2018. There was a lot of really exciting, incredibly fascinating stuff to read about this year, and I can't wait for all of the discoveries, advancements, and breakthroughs that will be made in the years to come.